What is up, everybody? I don't know if you guys can see Charlie. Can you see him? I'm off to Paris today. This is part 2 of my Ancestry trip. I have no idea what I'm doing there. They still haven't told me. I'm supposed to meet somebody once I get to Paris, and we're gonna be driving to a specific location. Right now, I'm going to meet my mom. She's gonna be taking Charlie for the week that I'm gone. Paris, baby. Later that night, I met my cousin Jeremy at the Toronto airport. It was a night flight. Here's a brief recap of what happened in those 8 hours. I was seated beside an older lady that smelled like 10 jars of potpourri, not even kidding. I watched 3 movies, had 1 chicken dinner, slept for about 2.5 hours, and dealt with the guy behind me doing this every 3 seconds. The time came, I looked out the window, and we had made it to Paris. A cigarette. We've arrived, guys. We've arrived in Paris. This is like standard French rooms. It's kind of the same size as like a queen bed, but they just split it down the middle. So essentially Jeremy and I are sleeping side by side, but technically it's okay. We got this nice bathroom. But we don't know where the lights are.
Yeah. But you can see, like, there's a pot light, right? Like,
yeah, 100%.
How you turn that guy on?
Yeah, accessible. Oh, tip.
Finis-moi le bon si tu peux connaître le meilleur si ça c'est plus.
We didn't tip him. I feel bad. Secondly, what is this? This one's my jacket pocket. It's like a corn chip. Yeah. Once we got over the guilt of not tipping, we went out for a nice Italian meal in a French city. We still think something was in our food because this happened when we got back to the hotel. Oh my god! I can't do this one.
I don't know. When you word it that way, of course I feel bad.
No, you know, it was mediocre for a 4-star. Your muscles were a little wet.
Day 1, Paris, baby. The whole reason why I'm here is for today. In about 10 minutes, there's a car picking us up, and we're going 2 hours to Lens, France. This is the big moment. Like, when I was meeting with Lisa in the first part of this series, it ended with this document. The one that said killed in action. They haven't told me much more than that, but who knew? 102 years later, his 2 great-grandchildren would be going back to the same place that was once in a war zone, I guess. Very different. Oh, what's the date today, Jeremy? Is it 17th? 18th. Yeah. Yesterday was his birthday.
Really?
December 17th. 1885. Wow. Yo, yesterday was his birthday. This is so weird, the timing. Anyway, Mr. William Peter Harrell, we're gonna hopefully learn the final ending of your story today. Should be exciting. Like 102 years ago, he died at this spot, you know? The only eerie thing is that at the end of tonight, Jeremy and I get to go back home, whereas our second great-grandfather unfortunately didn't. This is where he lost his life. Once we get to wherever we're going, again, we have like no idea where we're heading. We're meeting up with 2 people from Ancestry that are going to show us the second part of this Peter Harrell story. I have no idea what we're gonna see. Let's figure it out. Okay, I think we're... Whoa. Whoa. What is that? What is this? Yeah, I think we're here. We're here. This is the location. Man, check this out. Look at it. Interesting thing coming in here, by the way. There was signage, like there's these government signs that have the Canada flag on it. That's it. Wait, this isn't Vimy Ridge. Is this Vimy Ridge?
Yeah, I think so, actually.
No way.
That's what the Government of Canada sign says.
Holy sh... What? No, yeah, this is Vimy Ridge. Is it here?
I knew it was in France. I didn't know.
Man, let's look at the sign really quick. Oh my God, man, this is freaking
yeah.
Vimy Ridge.
National Historic Site of Canada.
Oh. Yo, do you see that sign behind me?
Yeah, yeah.
Danger, no entry, undetonated explosives. Wow, man, this is gonna be an experience. We have a connection to Vimy Ridge. Hey. Good to see you. Hi, mate. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
This is Simon. He's a professional researcher with Ancestry. His job is to actually dig deep into people's family trees and figure out more information for them. At this point, I had no idea what I was doing at Vimy Ridge. Growing up, I was never told of any ancestors that had fought here. I learned about it in school, but other than that, I had no connection to it.
The last thing I know was it says killed in action in a field.
Okay, well, it's interesting you say that because very sadly we know that William, your great-great-grandfather, did die during the war. But
Yeah.
It wasn't actually here.
It wasn't
It
here.
wasn't here. You've heard about Vimy Ridge and it's such an iconic, amazing part of Canadian history. And,
Yeah.
And your great-great-grandfather was here and he is part of that history. In December he finds himself in France and his unit, the 38th Battalion Canadian Expeditionary Force,
Yeah.
they fought here at Vimy Ridge. Now,
Wow.
you have a very real connection to this area, and the Canadians were tasked with taking Vimy Ridge, and that, as we know, included your great-great-grandfather William. It starts at 5:30 a.m. on the 9th of April. That is when the men they leave the trenches and the battle starts.
5:30 a.m. the battalion jumped off. 5:54 reported the battalion as having taken its first and second objectives. 24 minutes later?
Yeah.
24 minutes later, they've already covered their first and second objective. Retaliation, not very heavy, but a good deal of shrapnel. 6:05, 11 minutes later, reported having a signal station established at number 6 crater, and that the front lines was taken without opposition. 6:13 a.m., report that we had walked right through the craters, everything all right on the left, but no report from the right. 7 prisoners of the 261 regiment brought in.
So they're already bringing in prisoners already from the Germans.
That's unbelievable. It's less than an hour after they started.
It's incredible.
So almost an hour later, 6:25 a.m., telephone report from number 6 crater that all objectives taken.
So the Canadians as a whole nearly take all of their objectives on the first day, but you can see that the 38 have taken nearly all their objectives in 1 hour.
Oh, this is the 38.
This is what William is experiencing. So this is your great-great-grandfather.
Oh man, what he went through.
It is. So can you imagine just putting yourself in his shoes?
That's unbelievably quick. 55 minutes it took them.
100,000 Canadians that are attacking in this area, and as I said, 3,500 of them lost their lives. Wow. Taking this ridge.
Before we moved on, we took in the impact that the Battle of Vimy Ridge had.
Brothers, uncles.
Would you say he joined later at 30?
That, do you know what? That is seen as like an older man.
It is,
like,
right?
I mean,
Yeah.
You see, would have been seen as an older man at 31 years old.
Right.
You got you got boys there really that are 18, 19. You would have probably been seen as like, as like a father figure perhaps, or a grandfather, 12, 13 years older than some men. Your great-great-grandfather, William Peter Harrell, he was serving with the 38th Battalion, and they were part of these 4 Canadian divisions that attacked, and he was here. So your great-great-grandfather played a part in this battle.
But he didn't die here.
He didn't die here. He lived to fight another day, but sadly, unlike many of his comrades.
Next up, we visited a preserved trench system. When you entered, the walls started at your waist. The men were often told to stay low until the walls got higher as you moved in. This was to avoid headshots.
During my research, I found a letter written by a fellow soldier from the 38th Battalion, so a private, probably of a very similar background to William. He talks about his experience at Vimy Ridge and life in the trenches, and I thought maybe you'd like to have a read of it and read it out for us. Private soldier writing home to his family in the 38th Battalion, writing about his experience at Vimy. Did he know William? Did they cross paths?
We chased Fritz off the ground that we held all winter, and I think we've got him pretty well on the run now. We're out for the rest now, but I don't know for how long. We had a good bath at a coal mine this afternoon and a clean change of underwear, and we feel a lot better. You want to know if I am troubled with lice too? Well, I don't know which is the worst, the war or the lice. Wow. When we are in the trenches, what little time we get to sleep, the lice won't let us. And I get cold by twisting around and scratching. Who would have thought that lice is actually something that bothered these guys? How many people would you say would be in that battalion?
Roughly a battalion, particularly for a British battalion, was about 1,000 men.
There's a good chance that the guy that wrote this could have crossed paths
Yeah.
with my second great grandfather.
Did they train together? Did they, were they stationed in the same part of the trench together? You get on Ancestry, you find certain records, and it can start off perhaps with just a service record, and we've gone from a name maybe in a family tree to learning that he was killed, to coming here and learning more. It's amazing what one document can maybe spark off a story or a journey.
Big time. This is amazing. Look at this crater right here. So the reason the ground is so bumpy essentially is because of the artillery that was going off here. All of this fence, we can't go past here because there's undetonated explosives. Look at these grounds. It almost looks like a very intense golf course with how bumpy it is, but to know that what caused these was essentially explosives blowing up the ground nearly 103 years ago, and the ground is still like this. That's how impactful that was. I don't know what I'd do. Some of these guys were younger than me. Yeah. Most of them would have been younger than me. Oh.
So Dan, we've learned a little bit so far about William's service, your great-great-grandfather's experience at Vimy. William actually survived. He survived the fighting. This wasn't where he died. On the 13th, the 38th Battalion were pulled out of the front line for a very well-deserved rest. I kind of trawled through the war diary of the 38th Battalion, and here's a little extract for you from the 15th of April, so a few days after they've come out of the line. But you can see here they're still not out of harm's way.
This is a war diary,
This is from the war diary, so the day-by-day account of 38th Battalion, and this is 2 days after they've been pulled out of the line, so they're supposed to be in relative, I wouldn't say comfort, but away from the front line for a well-deserved rest.
During the course of the day, German shells fell frequently into the vicinity, and the involuntary ducking of their heads by the men. As the shells passed over, one of the men who's been through the heavy fighting on the Somme and Vimy Ridge facetiously remarked, "This is no place for us boys."
So having gone through all of that, and they're supposed to be in an area where they're resting.
Yeah,
so the next part of William's story, started preparing and training for the next attack.
The next attack after Vimy Ridge.
And that's what we're going to go on to in a moment. And we're now going to take a journey to the hamlet of Lac-au-Lout, just outside of Avignon, for the next part of our journey.
Okay, let's do it.
The next part of the story brought us to this sleepy little village called Lac-au-Lout.
Okay, stop number 2 is a little town called Lac-au-Lout. And I have no real understanding as to what happened here, but we're gonna find out.
Now, to put into perspective how small this place actually is, they don't have a Wikipedia, and I was unable to find the actual population of this city. There's also only 2 main intersections, this being one of them.
So we're in Lac-au-Lout. This is like super small French town. I guess this was probably a 10-minute drive from Vimy Ridge. Like, they wouldn't have a tourist center here.
We're now here in the hamlet of Lac-au-Lout, and this is the second part of William's story. And
They just fought there, they took over Vimy Ridge, and now it's like, let's do it again?
Yeah, that's right. It's, the aim to end the war, to break through the German lines,
Right.
And, you've had 2.5, 3 years of war already, and it's, there's this desperation to kind of find a breakthrough, end the stalemate, the trench warfare. And that's where we find ourselves now, in Lac-au-Lout. And the fighting at Lac-au-Lout and nearby Avignon, the aim really was to take away the Germans' attention from Passchendaele, to make them take reserves and men down here. So almost the fighting in Lac-au-Lout and Avignon was a diversion, if you like.
Okay.
And that's where William and the 38th Battalion found themselves. This was very much the front line and near the German lines. And you look around, it's hard to imagine that you'd have trench systems and all sorts, and artillery firing around here.
This looks more like a charming little French town where there'd be friendly camaraderie with their neighbors. Hey, I saw it, This was the German front lines?
Very close, yeah.
Very close.
Very trench systems running very nearby here. As we know, William and the 38th Battalion were about to go into action once more, and on the 26th of June 1917, the 38th Battalion launched their offensive and they attacked Lac-au-Lout, where we are now. And I printed you out a little extract from the war diary for you to read. So that's the 26th of June, the first day.
June 26. Battalion in front line. Advance made in afternoon. Airplanes and our AAs, anti-aircrafts, active. This would have been probably one of the last areas he would have seen.
Absolutely. By the 27th, the 38th Battalion and the Allies had taken Lac-au-Lout. And I'll just give you the next part of the war diary for the 27th and the 28th.
Okay. June 27th, enemy showed activity against Lac-au-Lout support line and Lac-au-Lout village. Gun and rifle fire active at intervals from buildings in Avion. Enemy parties were encountered in the captured area. Our artillery has been continuously active during the past 24 hours. Their artillery was active during the night, but quiet at this front today. They also used some gas shells. Their sniping very active, and their aircraft busy with observation work. Oh man, this is picking up quick.
It is.
This is unbelievable to read this stuff. June 28th, front line, 8 a.m., battalion in front line. Heavy barrage through preceding night and early morning.
And at the beginning you noted that you knew William was killed in action in the field. And I'd just like you to read here. This is a collection we have on Ancestry. It's for Canadian soldiers. It's an amazing, amazing source. It's almost a kind of circumstance of casualty record. And this is regarding the 27th of June 1917. I'd just like you to read that part there.
That says Peter Harrell.
William Peter Harrell.
Killed in action. He took part of his battalion in operations that resulted in the capture of Lac-au-Lout and Avion, and while in Lac-au-Lout was instantly killed by enemy shell fire. Wow. So he died here in Lac-au-Lout. Who would have thought?
And if you remember, in the war diary, there are so many references to enemy shell fire and barrages and artillery.
It's pretty impressive that, to the person, these documents still exist. William Peter Harrell.
Now, before we left, Simon took me to this special spot. This is the location where Peter Harrell was temporarily buried for 3 years. At the time, this row of townhouses was a brewery. 3 years passed, and the men that lost their lives in Lac-au-Lout were transported to a nearby cemetery. And this is where the story comes to an end.
Peter Harrell, before this whole experience, was just a name you could have said to me in passing. I would not have known who that was or what he was about. When I heard the story for the first time, I saw Killed in Action, you kind of get emotional in a weird way, because I didn't know, but you're like, oh, this guy's a hero, yeah, he's a part of my family, and then all of a sudden, Killed in Action. There's a sense of pride because of what they're saying here. Like he took part of his battalion in operations that resulted in the capture of Lac-au-Lout and Avion, right? So that's heroic. To hear that or to read that, I'm like, okay, he was still a hero, and it wasn't for nothing. And while in Lac-au-Lout was instantly killed by enemy shell fire. So through this whole experience, at least I've got the privilege of a story that I can now tell pretty factually, based off of documents and through experience of being here.
William Peter Harrell, I didn't know anything about you 3 weeks ago, but I'm incredibly proud to be related to you. Thank you, Ancestry, for helping me discover this story.